I call Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's an honour to take a call this evening on the Objectionable Publications and Indecency Legislation Bill in its committee stage. Can I acknowledge the contribution by Tracy Martin, because we did have some robust sort of conversations and debates when the member Dennis O'Rourke did speak. We were surprised because we were part of that committee. There were no objections at that point in time, either with the advisors, neither were there any concerns that you've just shared, Mrs Martin, in regards to what Mr O'Rourke has also discussed and debated when he last spoke. So it's heartening to hear that he's also to come to the view that this bill is much needed. It does provide provision, even though it may not be to the extent in which he considers or that New Zealand First considers. So it's heartening to see that New Zealand First are now, along with all the other parties, supporting this bill. Mr Chair, the bill is important because its purpose is to increase penalties, but it's not just about being punitive. The bill is around sending a message, not only to ensure that it protects the rights and also for children in this regards, Mr Chair, but also this concern is raised, and I want to just highlight this concern, which relates to part 1 of the bill, that of which protecting for children of these objectionable materials. In the Herald this morning, Mr Chair, it talked about online risks, raising parents and stress that it causes. In fact, the Parents Place research with Colmar Brunton had shown that 72% of parents are concerned. So the issues that are related to this bill are of concern to the wider parts of our community, and we believe that what we're doing with this bill, Mr Chair, is to ensure that the penalties do relate to that which is important, especially when we're talking about the different types of publications. The article also talks about online. And here we are talking about technology that has gone ahead of the legislation. So this legislation will meet those concerns that are raised there. And it talks about balancing those. So while we talk about where the role of the legislation is to ensure that we increase a punitive approach, it also talks about the roles and responsibilities of parents in this case. So we think the article is not only showing that the bill is relevant to the concerns that are raised by our wider community as well. Mr Chair, just sort of touching on again some of these key provisions, and especially in part 1, by increasing the maximum penalties for possession and the importing and exporting of an objectionable material from 5 to 10 years. We think this is, as the advice has been given, we know the submissions, there were 8 submissions in all, 3 oral submissions, there weren't a lot. But what they did state is importance to be able to send a very clear message, and we believe that that's what this is doing. Increasing the maximum penalties for supplying and distributing, and I know that Ms Martin talked about this, but from 10 to 14 years, and again, as the advice has been given from the Ministry, and in line again with submissions, the important to increase that level of imprisonment was actually important to sending a very clear message. Creating a presumption of imprisonment for repeat offenders, so any forms of recidivism, we think again needs to send a clear message out there because of the concern that this has. But at the same time too, we also agree that there needs to be forms of rehabilitation. So along with the Greens and with New Zealand First, we think that it's important that rehabilitation, that support that's surrounded, because we want to reduce recidivism, we want to ensure that people can get on with their lives, but most important, we want to protect those that are most vulnerable in our communities as well. The other thing that we're doing inside this and in part 1, Mr Chair, is about making it clear that in the Classification Act that the possession of objectionable material includes intentionally viewing. We know that there were some concerns, and they were shared by Mr Clendon, in regards to unintentional consequences of people clicking on with your mouse and into a site. We know that we believe that the tools that have been used to regulate this will ensure that those unintended consequences will not be punished, but in a sense we'll be able to pick up on those who are using this form of not being able to download the material as a way of being able to put themselves outside of any form of provision of this bill, and so we believe that we've got a good balance between them. The definition of an objectionable publication under the Classification Act is a publication which can include images and movies considered objectionable, and if it describes, depicts and expresses or otherwise deals with matters such as sex, horror, crime, cruelty and violence. Mr Speaker, we know that these things are important, and I know we define them inside this in its definition, but it's important because these are the publications which in our communities are of great concern to many as well. Today's offenders, we know, can access material through the technology in ways and speeds that were never imagined before previously when the Act was enforced. We're making it clear that possession includes intentionally viewing. The amendment ensures offenders with particularly technical expertise don't escape liability.
I call Poto Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.